This afternoon, we've heard 3 inspiring real-life cases so far, but I promised you 4, so it's time for our final and really particular case, which has been developed by NLMK. It is called the Corporate University Model, and here to tell us all about it, I have the pleasure to welcome in our studio Jean-Paul de Bartolo, who is head of HR Europe NLMK, and Julie Holmes, Organization Development Manager of the same company. Welcome to both of you. First of all, maybe it's a good idea to tell us a bit more about the business NLMK is in. I know it's a steel company, but Jean-Paul, could you explain briefly what the steel company is all about?
Sure, and thank you for giving us that opportunity.
You're welcome.
It's a real pleasure to be here today and share with you and with the audience our experience. I mean, it's very important for us to share about that corporate university. We are extremely excited about it. Mm-hmm. And as you said, it's maybe interesting to learn a bit more about NLMK, because that will trigger, let's say, to understand that will make you understand why we build the corporate university the way we did. So NLMK is a Russian company producing steel, established in 1931. And what you have to understand is that to produce steel, cost control, but also economies of scale are extremely important. So based on that, let's say the group has expanded, and since 2002, we've been acquiring companies around the world. And today in Europe, we have 6 plants, employing 2,200 people. What we do there is steel that you can see every day in cars, in construction, building decoration, in windmills, but also in shipbuilding, for those of you who have the chance to see ships every day. So today we want to discuss about our corporate university, how it helped us address topics like people development, collaboration and engagement. Mm-hmm.
So it's a type of leadership model. So how exactly did you start with this corporate university? Where did the idea come from?
Okay, so if you allow me, I also need to bring another particularity of NLMK, which is the vertical integration. So the company is vertically integrated. What does that mean? It means that from the very top of the supply chain to the very bottom, NLMK controls the different steps. So to produce steel, we need minerals, we need energy, and we are owning those elements. And then it moves from one plant to another to be further transformed before coming to the final customer. And that vertical integration is extremely powerful, because being in control of the whole chain, you can play with the different elements that makes the company performance. We control that. However, there is also a flip side to that vertical integration, which is that the performance of each plant influences the performance of the next one. So if you have a problem within the chain, it triggers issues down the road. So what we've seen is that in some plants, we have very good performance. In some other plants, the performance can be improved. And so everything started at the moment where we said, how can we improve performance of the different plants? There is one technological aspect, but we knew also that there was a people aspect. And so when we were asking ourselves that question, that was the start of the corporate university. Uh-huh.
Well, once you start with a model like corporate university, there's always problems popping up at uncertain times. I suppose that was also the case in your model. So what exactly were the problems that you were facing, and what were the impacts of those problems on the business?
Sure. So the first problem that we had to solve is that, of course, there was a technological problem. We gave that to our engineers, and we remain in HR with the people problem. And the first issue is that we had no common view on what will make our people be more performant tomorrow than today. We had no common set of values, no common set of competence that we wanted to have all our people sharing. As a consequence, some plants were very good at solving issues. 2 hours, it was fixed. In other plants, it took 2 days to solve some issues. Not because of a difference in technology, but just the way to address a problem in one plant versus another was different. And we wanted to address that, and that was the first problem we faced. That's inter-plant. If we zoom into one plant, what we also see is that between departments, the level of collaboration was not as good as we wanted. And so that was the second issue we wanted to tackle, is how can we make sure that those 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, department can really work together, because that collaboration, that interconnection between departments is also a very big trigger, a very big lever for the company performance.
Were there different solutions that you tried in order to see what the results were like? And those solutions were not always successful. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. We tried a number of solutions. The first one that we tried was, what about creating our own European university? But then we very quickly realized we do not have the time to do that. We do not have the competencies to do that. We do not have the number of people doing that. Remember, I've said being lean and controlling cost is something very important in this industry. And even though we would have had all that, we would not have been really connected with the group. So we put that aside. The second aspect is, because we wanted to tackle the performance aspect issue, we thought about putting in place a performance appraisal for every single individual in the company. But that would have been tackling certainly the performance issue, or at least part of the performance issue, but certainly not the aspect of collaboration and engagement. Unfortunately, there is no real appraisal system that creates engagement in a company. At least that's my opinion. So that we put aside also. The other point, and then we came into discussion with the group and started to discuss about our issue, the issue that they were facing at the group, and we realized that having or creating that corporate university would certainly be a very good integrator tool. And we started discussing that. But one thing we wanted to avoid was to have something cascaded by the group, created in Russia, deployed here in Europe without culture adjustment. And this is the role of Julie, to be in contact with the group to ensure that the content developed over there can be very speaking to our people here. That was not done without challenge, of course. Typical challenge that we face, and the audience will recognize that, is that in a technological company where fast result, speed is very important, taking someone out of the line to go into a development activity is not something very easy. And it's okay if you learn technology, or if you learn new tools, or something technical, it's fine. To talk about leadership culture, something more complicated. And the second challenge, and that's in a way what will be unique, and Julie will share that with you in a second, is how can we create engagement in our leadership team. And we turned, and I think we successfully turned that obstacle into something that is really the engine of the corporate university.
Actually, could you define in a few words what exactly is your ambition, or was your ambition with the creation of the corporate university?
Yes, for sure. I mean, basically, if I have to summarize, it will be 3 points. The first point is that we wanted to create an environment or real teamwork and collaboration within the company to ensure the strategic objective of the company would be met. The second objective was to create, or is to create, a management culture, a culture of managerial culture that would, let's say, distill within the organization best practices and help people learn new tools, new techniques, new way to walk the line, to do the side work within the plant, etc. And the last element, which is not the least, is to work and to develop an inspirational leadership climate. So all this will greatly contribute to the performance of the company. So that's what the corporate university is about.
Mm-hmm. So now we know more or less how it was created, how it was born. So I would like to move over to Julie now. And Julie, could you tell us what makes this corporate university so unique?
Well, our corporate university model is based on 3 key pillars. So the first key pillar is that we have decided to work with our own programs. The second key pillar is our leader teach the leaders approach. And the last key pillar is the mass training. If I come back to the first key pillar, we have decided to build up our own program. So that means that we have a team especially dedicated for this design. And our programs are the foundations of the company's knowledge process management. And today we have 13 programs that cover topics from leadership to production system, safety, or fundamentals of economics. And that means that we believe that we are able to answer concrete people expectation in a very practical way. The programs are a fusion between NLMK best expertise, but also global best practices. The second key pillar is our leader teach the leaders approach. And this is, according to me, the most powerful pillar, because today we are able to say that 100 of our trainers are internal trainers. These are volunteers, people who are supported by our corporate university, and they can now ensure the transfer of knowledge, but also the development of best management practices. And the last one, the mass training concept, is that we have decided to open the corporate university to a very large audience. So that means that today we have managers, experts, but also foremen and some key functions that are eligible to join the corporate university.
Mm-hmm. Well, it all sounds very ambitious to me. I suppose there were quite some challenges you had to face. What can you tell us about them?
Yes, for sure. So we had a lot of challenge to face, but if I had to choose 2, I would like to speak about the rollout from the Russian model to our European context. Mm-hmm. And the second one would be the adaptations of the content of the program. And it was very challenging because when you speak about challenge, you directly imagine big things, but here we speak about details. And if I can share an experience with you, when I have been asked to join the program in Russia to discover what we are speaking about in the corporate university, I was completely surprised, because in Russia, you start your training day at 8 o'clock, 8 sharp. Mm-hmm. And then you end your day around 6:30, 7 o'clock with maximum 13-minute break during the whole day. That's intensive. And the second thing that I have observed is that the group dynamics and the active participation are not considered as key indicator to measure how the trainer can capture the attention of the audience. And yes, the difference was very big with our European culture. And then we had to think about that point. And we have chosen solutions that could fit with our European ways of learning. We have invested a lot in adaptations of programs in terms of culture, but also in terms of dynamic. And I can say that we really don't regret it. On top of that, yes, and this is linked to the second challenge. On top of that, you have to consider that if you choose to work with in-house programs, you must be excellent because your programs are the mirror of your company, and they are also the mirror of the knowledges that you want to transfer. And that means that we had to adapt a lot of things, as for example, concrete examples that were directly speaking to the audience, translation for each country. So that means that we had to translate content in Italian, Danish, French, English, to capture new video, new testimonials with well-known faces who could speak to the audience, and to make sure that all the participants to recognize their day-to-day, their own job, their specific examples. And that was a big investment in terms of time, in terms of resources, human resources. And you can easily imagine that in a company like NLMK that counts 55,000 people, you need a solid network to face these challenges. Financial resources was also very important. But if I can conclude this part regarding challenges, you can observe that excellence, even in details or tailor-made approach, was very decisive to engage our people in the corporate university.
But I wonder, is excellence enough then to launch the corporate university?
No, it's a good base. Excellence is a good base, but what has worked for us is to engage the top management from the very beginning. So the top management is the gateway to the corporate university launch. Because once they decide to become a trainer, they show their capacity to find the time. They show in a very active way their vulnerability because they accept to be trained. And once they deliver the training, they position themselves in a position of partner, expert, and people who are able to inspire other people. So excellence was not enough, but combined with the engagement of the top management, that's there when the magic happens to launch the corporate university.
You already referred to the trainers that you work for. How exactly do you convince people to free up their time and really become a trainer? What kind of stimulators did you use?
Yes, it was a touchy question. We had plenty of questions like, how are we going to be able to convince people to spend their times to become trainers? We speak about 5 days a year. And the beauty of the model made all these questions disappeared, because once the top management show in a very observable way that he's committed, all these questions disappeared.
Now, you also mentioned that most corporate universities are available for top managers only, but yours is available to an open range of people. Why is it so wide, the range of people that have access to the corporate university? There was one particular reason for it?
Yes, because we wanted to make sure to deliver the same message to a very large public in the same time. And as I mentioned in the very beginning of this part, people who are eligible to join the corporate university are managers, experts, but also foremen. And it also allows us to respond touchy question. That is, how can we measure the return on investment when we speak about training? And it helps us because if you imagine that the trainer is working on the same plant or on the same project that participant, it's more easy to observe the impact of your training. It's also more easy to give feedback because you have delivered a message based on a common set of languages or knowledge. So that's a reason why we choose for that option.
Mm-hmm. Now it's been more or less a year now since you started having the idea of having the corporate university. What were the main lessons learned so far out of this experience?
So, well, it's quite simple. I think that learning and development combined with a very solid and tailor-made model helped us to progress, because it's not something that we have achieved, but the progress is ongoing, to build up a common culture and to develop our potential of leadership and to respond to the critical question, how can we support NLMK strategy? And I think that today we can say that we can be proud that a company like NLMK, that is typically a part of the heavy industry, can be competitive in terms of learning and development. And if I have a look 1 year ago, I think that we have more engaged people today.
Mm-hmm. Now, we received a question in our chat box, and I don't know who of you will respond to it, but it says, what are the critical success factors for running a corporate university? Julie, Jean-Paul, who's going to take it?
I think that if we have a look on our own experience, is the tailor-made approach. And that's very important, yes, to make sure that you can deliver practical in-house programs that are directly speaking to your participants. And the second key success factors, and that's maybe the most important, is to make sure that your trainers are internal trainers, because they deliver a concrete message, they are active on their day-to-day job, and they can also observe what works and what doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe if I can, before maybe moving to the next question, everything is linked to the relevance, how relevant is what you are delivering to your audience. And I must say that I'm sure that in the audience here of the HR Summit, many of you are facing issues of performance, issues of collaborations and engagement, but the way we make it happen and successful in NLMK was despite we are having the same problem as any other company, we invented our own solution. And that makes it extremely relevant for the people who are participating as a trainer or as a learner. And that was, for me, one of the major success factors of this university.
Okay, another question that popped up. Someone was eager to know about the internal competition, if there was any, between the different sites. Did you have the feeling there was internal competition or not at all?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, and this is, I don't know, it has nothing to do with the corporate university. This is part of the DNA of NLMK. I think it's a company obsessed by performance, metrics, analyze. When we have an issue, no one is going to be blamed. It's just we have an issue as a high speed, let's say, high commitment company. We all join forces to try to fix the issue. As we said, in some companies it goes faster and deeper, in some no, but okay, we want to help those who are in need, and there is no internal competition. In that vertical model, one influences the other for sure, but how can I say? There is no you know, award at the end of the year about okay, who was the best or the low cost company. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, and then one final thing, maybe as a wrap-up, as a conclusion, what has been your experience overall about this corporate university leadership model? Maybe, Jean-Paul, that's your way of saying.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to conclude with is, as I've said, that notion of relevance is very key, but there are also other elements. I often read about individualized development. Everything nowadays, you take your computer or your smartphone, everything is linked to you. And I do believe it's very important. However, there is no way we would have achieved higher collaboration without bringing people together. And that's what the corporate university is about. So the human factor is very important. So that is something I learned. The second point, and I think Julie already mentioned it, is instead of even though NLMK is a company driven by numbers, for the moment we are not doing correlation between the success of the corporate university and the success of each plant, because the human factor there is very important. When you teach, you know what you expect from people the next day. If you see, fine. If you don't see it, then you discuss. And just the last word is the topic of engagement is extremely important for HR. It's a big topic. Our choice was to slice the elephant and to start by engaging our leaders, as Julie explained. Engaging our leaders cascade down into the organization and makes it very engaging also for the people down the line.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie and Jean-Paul, for presenting this corporate university model developed by NLMK. Thanks.
It was a pleasure.